Larger-than-life stage wear is managed by Andrea Gamble, who first became interested in costumes some years ago when she joined Bromley Little Theatre, and has enjoyed costuming theatre productions ever since.
I'm Andrea Gamble, and I started up larger-than-life stage wear in 2007. I originally wanted to specially cater for people who were larger sizes, because I always found it very difficult when I was costuming shows. It's evolved into quite a large concern, really. I really like the idea that people come to me and say, we're doing a show, what can you do to help? And it's even better if I'm given free rein. If I work within their parameters, that's fine, as long as I've got the stock. My stock is mainly heavy period, 18th century Regency, late Victorian, Edwardian, some 1920s, 30s. If you're planning a show like Taming of the Shrew, which is a play I have costumed, and you want to do it in 20s and 30s, you can look at the various styles within those decades, quite whether you want to depict any as flappers for sort of the 20s, going into the more elegant, sleek costumes of the 30s. You've got the obvious, the flapper style, very basic style, a very basic shape, and it's made by having the fringing. I think it's wonderful. In fact, when I got this one, it only had a couple of layers of fringing, so I put all this on and the string. I think it's transformed it. It looks really good on stage, it moves, and the satin's good and the light. This one, again, I made because I needed one of a larger size, and I actually found a pattern. I think it would be quite possible to get a basic pattern, and then somebody who's useful with a sewing machine can just put 2 layers of beads. Very simple, very effective. Choose the right fabric, the fabric for the time, silky, shiny, good under the lights. I think that's another consideration. Some of these are plainer, but for day wear, I had these, they were very plain, so I put some ric-rac around the neck, and it was transformed with some trim. Doesn't cost very much. Now this one was actually a ball dress, and for a customer I made it. You can see it's I've just got a dart here, and I made some straps with just some decoration. The other characters could be more, if they're going in towards, say, if you're going more into the 30s, later 30s style, we've got quite long, which is quite sleek for perhaps an older character. I think that's a little more difficult to run up. But then I would concentrate on looking at the principles for perhaps something that's a bit special. If they're carrying the bulk of the show on their shoulders, then they deserve to have that keynote, something that people will see immediately and they'll know that it's 30s. I think when you're doing a production, you've got to make sure that you have a good keynote suggestion of the costumes. Then you've got possibly somebody who could be like a maid, so a typical 30s dress, a longer line, very prettily decorated. As far as the central characters are concerned, whether they need to have coats, hats, if they're going to be going into an outdoor scene, very typical of the period. The lovely style sort of swishes out at the back. And you can also add fur. People wore fur then, although it's not terribly popular. I think you have to ignore what's the fashion of today and reflect the time. Audiences are willing to accept a lot of design productions, but I do think you need to help them. If it's an outdoor scene and there's not much scenery, they come on a coat, that's fine. After the restrictions of a late Victorian going into Edwardian, and then we had the 20s, so that they didn't have corsets, so everything's very pretty. If it needs to be a romantic theme, which obviously it is in the Taming of the Shrew, then that can be reflected in the costumes. It has to be explored in quite detail, because if it's in an intimate space, it's got to be correct. So that's the ladies. And as far as the men are concerned, it just depends on the way the director wants to pitch it. conventional suits, casual, could just have men in shirt sleeves and waistcoats to sort of cut down the cost a little bit. I think there's always ways around. I think you have to be flexible. I don't think it's enough just to say we need 10 suits, we need this. If there's a way of adapting to fit your budget, and as long as it's visually good, then I think you can stretch the borders a little bit. It's an exciting idea. So I think the prospect for constructing some costumes for Taming of the Shrew is very good. Even if you don't have to make them all, you can find some on hire and then maybe copy if there's somebody who's very good on dress design. There's so much in the way of decoration at local markets. That's where I get a lot of mine. And then you've got feather boas you can use for that period, little capes, hats, plush hats that fit onto the head for day wear. Also, later in the period they were slightly bigger. It's not difficult to find styles today that are representative of those periods. There's a lot of clothes around today that are very typical of the 60s. So, it's quite possible to look around and see, find some items either in local outlets or charity shops. It's amazing what you can find.